Jean Pierre Labaguette was once a king of cuisine, rising from a humble French bistro in New York to a Michelin-starred empire, until scandal, financial ruin, and federal investigations forced him into exile. Back in Lyon, he reopened his childhood restaurant, Chez Labaguette, only to find a France that had changed. Fast food replaced fine dining, and tradition was no longer in style. Refusing to conform, he launched a bold menu, L'Âme de la France, reviving unapologetically classic dishes that sparked both praise and criticism. Then, in a twist no one saw coming, President Donald Trump granted him a public pardon, igniting media frenzy and giving Jean Pierre the opportunity to return to America. As the news played in the quiet of his rustic kitchen, Jean Pierre took a slow bite of his tarte tatin. Weeks later, Jean Pierre landed at JFK to a media storm and a personal welcome from Trump, who announced plans to reopen Chez Labaguette in Manhattan, with Jean Pierre at the helm. Chez Labaguette opened in New York's Upper West Side, blending French tradition with American flair. After reopening Chez Labaguette, Jean Pierre felt his family needed a break from the restaurant and their complicated past. He suggested a vacation, and after some debate, safaris, vineyards, beaches, they settled on a Caribbean sailing trip. 2 weeks later, they arrived in St.MARTIN, where their sleek sailboat, the Privilege, and its charming skipper, Larry, awaited them. Jean Pierre was polite but guarded, while Sylvie felt an unexpected spark. Days on the water brought laughter, snorkeling, and sun-drenched beaches, gradually softening everyone's edges. Jean Pierre warmed to Larry's skill and calm, while Sylvie struggled to hide her growing admiration. Jean Pierre Labaguette and his family are enjoying a peaceful Caribbean evening aboard their luxury yacht, the Privilege, off the coast of St. Vincent, watching fireworks light up the sky. Their serenity is shattered when a low-flying plane circles them and drops duffel bags into the sea, one landing directly on their deck. Inside, their skipper, Larry, discovers it's packed with cocaine. Tension rises as a speedboat approaches, and a man named Pedro Musckobar, a Colombian drug trafficker, boards the yacht demanding his cargo. Jean Pierre quickly hides the bag, but before violence erupts, the Coast Guard arrives, prompting Pedro and his crew to retreat. What began as a dream vacation becomes a high-stakes brush with danger, leaving the Labaguette family shaken and caught in the shadows of the drug trade. After discovering a bag of cocaine aboard the Privilege, Jean Pierre's family is torn apart by temptation. His children dream of opening a beachside bistro. Larry wants a bigger boat, and Sylvie demands her share, defying Jean Pierre's warnings about danger and death. Old resentments surface, betrayals are laid bare, and despite Jean Pierre's pleas, the others choose greed. The next morning, Jean Pierre walks away with his children, while Sylvie remains on the boat, her face heavy with sadness. Jean Pierre, clutching the bag, made his way to the shabby Office des Douanes. He admitted to carrying cocaine for the infamous Pedro Musckobar. The officer, alarmed, ordered him to return it. "You've just made us targets too." At Panama Airport, a customs officer nearly searched the bag until a dog's bark diverted attention. "Just go," the officer muttered. In Colombia, Jean Pierre wasn't so lucky. The drugs were found. "Cocaine into Colombia?" the agents scoffed. But the customs boss had a plan. "Go to Medellin, find Muskcobar, then call me." Outside, agents slipped a tracker into his bag. Jean Pierre boarded a flight, no longer trying to do the right thing. Now it was about staying alive. In a Bogota hotel, Jean Pierre stares out at the chaos of Usaquén, haunted by the name Pedro Musckobar. He roams the markets, asking strangers. Every mention of Muskcobar brings silence and fear. Alone, Jean Pierre can't sleep, so he decides to go out. He questions a taxi driver. At Muskcobar's name, the car stops. "Get out," the driver mutters, terrified. At a buzzing salsa club, Jean Pierre is approached by a woman, Sandra. They drink. Sandra flirts. Jean Pierre finally opens up. "I made a mistake, a big one, and someone's paying for it." Sandra listens. They leave from the club and get a taxi. In a night charged with desire, secrets, and forbidden comparisons, Jean Pierre and Sandra surrender to passion. After a night together, Sandra asks Jean Pierre to help her get to the US. In return, she offers to take him to Pedro Musckobar. Upon arrival, they travel from the airport to Guatapé, then by helicopter deeper into the jungle. Mid-flight, Jean Pierre is hooded and taken to Muskcobar's hidden finca. There, Muskcobar confronts him about the missing drugs. Jean Pierre claims some were lost, but Muskcobar insists he'll stay until everything is recovered. After Sandra reveals Jean Pierre's background, Muskcobar forces him to cook, turning the finca into a culinary haven. Muskcobar discovers the GPS in the bag, retaliating by bombing the customs office with a drone. Back at the finca, Muskcobar reveals his true ambition: to become president of Colombia, and demands Jean Pierre's help to achieve it. Months into his captivity at Muskcobar's finca, Muskcobar proposes a bold idea. He wants help to become president of South America. Jean Pierre agrees under one condition. His involvement lasts only 1 year and 1 day. To gain cartel support, Muskcobar hosts a grand banquet. Jean Pierre introduces narco cuisine. The elite guests are captivated. Muskcobar reveals his campaign plan: legalize and tax illegal trades to fund national infrastructure. With the slogan, "Make Antioquia Great Again," Muskcobar's populist movement sweeps the nation. Promising change and infrastructure, he captures the hearts of a weary people and wins. Sylvie thought life with Larry would be a romantic adventure. They bought a sleek catamaran, the Privilege II, and began chartering trips between St.MARTIN and St. Barth. But Larry changed. He became a lazy, domineering captain, leaving Sylvie to do all the work while he drank and ignored her. When Hurricane Emmanuel approached, Sylvie warned Larry, but he dismissed her. A massive wave struck, snapping his harness and throwing him to the deck. Injured and in pain, he barked orders while Sylvie took control of the boat, steering it through the chaos to safety. The catamaran crashed into the dock, battered by the storm. Sailors helped rescue Larry, and he was rushed to the hospital. Sylvie stood alone, soaked and shaken, knowing the storm wasn't over. Elsewhere, Hurricane Emmanuel destroyed Grand Case. Siblings Patrick and Jacqueline watched their restaurant crumble under the storm's force, vowing to rebuild from the ruins. Aftermath of Hurricane Emmanuel Street. Martin lies in ruins. Jacqueline and Patrick grieve as they inspect what remains of their destroyed restaurant. Jean Pierre arranges for Muskcobar to send a private jet to evacuate them. They're taken to Muskcobar's grand estate. Inside, Patrick notices photos of the crime lord with infamous figures. Muskcobar greets them warmly but soon turns serious, reminding Jean Pierre of his debt. "Your debt is theirs now." At dinner, Muskcobar unveils his plan: create a restaurant empire serving hormigas colonas, giant edible ants. He offers full funding but makes one thing clear: Refusal is not an option. The siblings reluctantly agree, knowing they're trapped. As the sun set over the finca, Jean Pierre cleaned the kitchen when he saw a familiar figure, Sylvie, walking toward the house, exhausted and disheveled. Shocked, he rushed to her. She tells that she had lost everything, the boat, the money, and came to him with nowhere else to go. Jean Pierre comforted her and introduced her to Sandra and tells her that he has changed and that he loves Sandra. The next morning, Sylvie approached Muskcobar on the terrace. Dressed with grace and charm, she seduced him with subtle confidence. Muskcobar, intrigued, begins to see Sylvie as more than a guest. They shared drinks and exchanged ideas about power, legacy, and rebuilding. Meanwhile, his opponents use mercenaries to attack the finca. With Jean Pierre's help, Sylvie and Sandra escape into the jungle. Officers cuffed them both. Jean Pierre and Muskcobar are imprisoned together. Muskcobar sees it all as Act 2 of their saga. The warden offers Jean Pierre a deal to improve the prison kitchen. Jean Pierre transforms the food, impressing both guards and inmates. Jean Pierre realizes he's cooking his way into control and deeper into the game. Jean Pierre and Muskcobar learn they're being transferred to a harsher prison. With no time to waste, they plan an escape. Jean Pierre bakes cookies laced with scopolamine to sedate the guards. Meanwhile, Muskcobar secures disguises, wigs, and dresses. That night, the guards unknowingly eat the cookies and collapse. Dressed as women, Jean Pierre and Muskcobar sneak past security and escape. Outside, a contact picks them up. They flee to Jean Pierre's family restaurant in Bogotá, where his children welcome him back. In a shabby Bogotá safe house, Jean Pierre, Muskcobar, Jacqueline, and Patrick debate their next move. The authorities are closing in, and staying in Colombia is no longer an option. Jacqueline suggests Russia, Venezuela, and finally, Thailand. Jean Pierre warms to the idea of quietly working in a restaurant there. But escaping won't be easy. Airports are risky. Muskcobar proposes smuggling out using fake identities and contacts who can bypass borders. It's dangerous, but their best shot. The safe house in Bogotá was a grim, flickering refuge, barely masking the desperation of the fugitives within. They need a physical changes to escape. Muskcobar arranged for plastic surgery through a discreet, elite surgeon, Dr. Cardoza. They set their sights on Brazil, lured by its lax extradition policies and vibrant chaos. To blend in, they had to become Brazilian, learn the language, cook the food, and dance the samba. To avoid extradition, Muskcobar proposed Argentina as their next hideout, citing its chaotic politics and economic instability. They enrolled in classes to adopt the local accent. The team began tango lessons, embracing the dance as a cultural key to blending into Argentine society under Valeria's strict guidance. At a shady plastic surgery clinic, Jean Pierre is pressured by Muskcobar to choose a new face, and Jean Pierre hesitantly selects one. Just before the surgery begins, Jean Pierre turns on the surgeon, injecting him with the sedative meant for himself. He quickly subdues the nurse, ties her up, and disguises himself in the surgeon's coat. Slipping out unnoticed, Jean Pierre hails a taxi to the U.S. consulate. Gaining entry through clever manipulation and an elaborate story, he seeks asylum, and the U.S. consul agrees to temporarily shelter him. While in hiding, Jean Pierre cooks for embassy staff. His culinary talent becomes his refuge and wins over the team. Quietly, Muskcobar prepared a backup, a decommissioned Argentine submarine hidden off the coast. Manned by bribed naval outcasts, it was their last resort, an escape route if reinvention failed and danger resurfaced. Muskcobar and Sylvie escape from Bogota into the dense, dangerous jungle. The terrain is treacherous. Thick vines, mud, and relentless insects hinder their progress. Esteban, their silent, capable guide, leads them expertly through the jungle. A deadly fer-de-lance snake is encountered and swiftly killed by Esteban. The group reaches a powerful, fast-moving river blocking their path. Esteban prepares a rope for a guided crossing and instructs them on safety. Sylvie nearly drowns during the crossing but is saved by Muskcobar. Nightfall brings a new kind of danger: darkness, predators, and psychological stress. Esteban builds a small fire and organizes shifts for staying alert. Strange sounds echo through the forest, unknown, possibly threatening. By the third day, they are physically and mentally depleted. Esteban leads them in silence, pressing forward into deeper jungle territory. Panama City is bustling with energy and corruption, a haven for offshore wealth and criminal enterprises. Muskcobar and Sylvie move through the streets toward a secret meeting. They arrive at Gomez and Associates, a firm known for handling offshore dealings. Suspicion lingers, but they proceed, knowing it's their only chance to disappear. Inside the firm, Eduardo Gomez greets them, confident and well-connected. Muskcobar offers a cash payment for new identities, bank accounts, and full disappearances. As the final paperwork is completed, federal agents storm the office. Gomez is arrested for money laundering and conspiracy, but Muskcobar and Sylvie were able to escape. At the foggy docks, they hide behind containers. Suddenly, a battered submarine surfaces. Juan, an old associate of Muskcobar, awaits them aboard the Sancho Panza. With authorities closing in, they board the sub to escape. Juan seals the hatch and prepares for a silent run. Coast Guard patrols are scanning the waters. A sudden jolt signals depth charges. The sub dives deeper to avoid them. Sonar pings indicate they're being hunted. Juan launches a decoy flare torpedo to distract the pursuers. The Coast Guard takes the bait, allowing the sub to evade detection, temporarily. Hours later, the sub surfaces near a chain of Caribbean islands. Juan and Muskcobar search for a safe docking location. Muskcobar proposes several options, claiming favors from powerful political allies. A submarine quietly approaches the Haitian coastline under the cover of night. They deploy an inflatable raft and paddle silently to shore. Upon landing, they hide the raft and prepare for travel through the jungle. With a crude map and flashlight, they begin their cautious inland trek before dawn. As they near the village, strange whistles echo around them, signals. They're surrounded by armed men led by a scarred warlord known as Fête Nationale. They're loaded into a truck and taken away under heavy guard. Now prisoners in a decrepit warehouse, Sylvie and Muskcobar are restrained and watched. Escape seems impossible as their fate remains uncertain.